The most common activist issues. Chapter 1. Specific activist social issues 1. The most common activist issues. The most common activist issue in my opinion is poverty. There are so many people in the world without enough food to eat, basic medical care, a warm bed to sleep in and a feeling of safety such that they're not constantly worried about a band of bullies coming around at any time to do as they please with them, government bullies or non-government bullies alike. The most common issues that people are dissatisfied with in no particular order are as follows. A concern over eroding freedoms in the name of fighting terrorism and drug trafficking. A denial of basic human rights. Abortion rights. Basic shelter. Child labor. Civil rights. Clean water. Corrupt insurance companies. Corrupt corporations. Corruption and greed within corporations at the expense of the small-time investor. Cruelty to animals. Cultural indoctrination. Death penalty. Deforestation. Destruction of the rainforests. Disease and illness. Dissatisfaction with the government. Dissatisfaction with elitist behavior in the government. Dissatisfaction with corruption in the government. Educational opportunities. Environmental concerns. Explicit, tasteless advertising on TV. False imprisonment. Free use of software, music downloading, etc. versus paying for it. Freedom of religion. Gay rights. Global warming. Good jobs for good pay. Gun rights versus gun control. High salaries of politicians. High taxes. Hunger. Hypocrisy in the government. Legalization of recreational substances. Mainstream media censorship. Medical care. Police brutality. Political propaganda. Politicians who lie. Pollution in general. Poverty. Prison reform. Racism. Reasonable taxes. Safety. Scams, crooks, con artists. The relationships between government officials and corporations at the expense of the public good. The insanity of the so-called drug war. The dependence on oil which uses up non-renewable energy while not aggressively developing alternative sources. The commercialization of life everywhere. The morally low levels of some pop culture products. The promotion of the materialistic ideology as the key to happiness. The use of religion as a cloak to do bad deeds. The paranoia of a terrorist threat. The right to freely express opinions. Transportation infrastructure. Union corruption. Unions versus corporations. Violent crime. Women's rights. Abiotic oil theory vs fossil fuel theory. Most oil is not a fossil fuel according to the abiotic theory. Peak oil is the conventional theory that oil was made from fossils. There is only so much of it, then it will run out. Some people say it's all a con job to sell oil, raise its prices and scare people. They say that oil is created out of natural geological processes deep in the earth, it's constantly being made and it will never run out. This is the abiotic theory. They say they have to keep this con job going about oil being made out of fossils, therefore non-renewable, because the world's economy is based on oil. To suddenly announce that oil is abundant would destroy our worldwide economic system. TheoILDrum.com. peakoil.org. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/abiogenic_petroleum_origin. wikimedia.org/wikipedia/en/wiki/abiotic_oil. mypeakoil.org. oilempire.us/abiotic.html. AIDS websites 20yearsofaids.org, aac.org, 800-235-2331, AIDS Action. aegis.com, idsauthority.org, aidsaction.org. aids-info.com, idslaw.ca, aidsnet.c, hadesnews.org, 800-873-2812, aidsnyc.org, aidsquilt.org, aidskids.org, aidsneek.org, aidsproject.org, aidsresearch.org, aidswalkcanada.org. Anti-shopping activists. adbusters.org/campaign/bnd, buy-nothing-day.buy-nothing-day.de/htm/english.htm consumerminster.com iBuyDifferent.org sweatfree.org/shopping, buy goods made under fair labor conditions.sweatshopwatch.org. Capital punishment/death penalty. The few states which don't have the death penalty are Alaska, District of Columbia, Hawaii, Iowa, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, North Dakota, Rhode Island, Vermont, West Virginia, Wisconsin. Of the states that do, most use lethal injection. Some use electrocution. A few still have the gas chamber, the firing squad, and hanging on their logbooks. The death penalty scares some people off from committing heinous crimes and also gets rid of the worst people. Books about capital punishment are at number 364.6609 or HV8694 at the library. clarkprosecutor.org/html/links/links.htm deathpenaltyinfo.org prodeathpenalty.comaclua.org 205-675-2319 Civil Liberties Union Capital Punishment Project. Deathpenaltyinfo.org ncadp.org Abolish the death penalty. Deathpenalty.org deathpenaltyinfo.org Chemtrails info. Chemtrails are some kind of illegal spraying of chemicals from airplanes that the government does. Chemtrailcentral.com Chemtrails. renzi.com/datapages/harveydata.html, collection of articles on the topic of chemtrails. Drug activism websites. blamethedrugwar.blogspot.com blog.drugpolicy.org/blog.leap.cc/bornlivelovedy.com cannabisculture.com/cannabismd.org csdp.org Common Sense for Drug policycures-not-wars.org daregeneration.blogspot.com/dea.gov/concern/drug_trafficking.htmeldruknet.org The Drug Reform Coordination Network. drugpolicycus.com drugsnse.org drugwar.com drugwarfacts.org NORML1001 Connecticut Ave. NW number 1010 Washington DC 20036 NORML.org. Fair Trade Info. Fair trade is not to be confused with free trade, which are trade agreements between countries. Fair trade is an organized social movement that strives to help the farmers, artists, and other manual laborers in third world countries get a fair wage for their products. There are some stores around that focus on selling fair trade products. transfairusa.org non-profit monitoring organization which certifies that participating traders are following fair trade guidelines. Fairtradefederation.org, fairtradefederation.com, association of businesses which provides fair wages and employment opportunities to low-income artisans and farmers worldwide. Fairtrade.org.uk, BAFTS.org.uk, British Association for Fair Trade Shops. Fairtourisemsa.org.za, Fair Trade in Tourism, South Africa. Fairtrade.asn.au, promotes fair trade in Victoria and Tasmania, Australia. Fairtrade.net, Fair Trade Labeling Organizations International, standards and certification body for the fair trade movement. Fairtrade.org.uk. Fairtradeegypt.org. Fairtraderesource.org. Fairtradestudents.org, Fair Trade Student Association. Immigration law websites no2.org.uk, no one is illegal. Fairus.org, the Federation for American Immigration Reform nclr.org, Immigration Reform. Immigrantrights.org immigrationlinks.com travel.state.gov/visas/immigrants/uscis.govus immigrationsupport.org immigrationcontrol.com irc-online.org immigrationreform.alipac.uscis.org Center for Immigration Studies immigrationlinks.com refugees.org The Advocates for Human Rights 330 2nd Avenue South Suite 800 Minneapolis, Minnesota 55401 612-341-3302 Immigrant Client Line 612-341-9845 The Advocates for Human Rights.org. Chapter 2. Specific Activist Social Issues 2. Industry-funded organizations. Big corporations and big industries with deep pockets from their member corporations often set up or fund activist organizations that are partial to their cause. Even though there is nothing illegal about funding non-profit organizations, it gets mushy when these non-profits are promoting a business's capitalist cause in order to manipulate the political system to serve their ends. There are a lot of front groups out there that are not what they purport to be. They found one group that was passing itself off as a Christian anti-gambling group was really a group created by a consulting company to promote pro-Indian gambling interests, so they created this front group to try to destroy competition to Indian gambling rights. Industry-funded organizations act as industry advocates, oftentimes pretending to be not connected or funded by the particular industry. Sourcewatch.org/index.php title =industry-funded organizations. Internet activists for a free internet. Government and big business want to control the internet. Just about everybody else wants it to stay free, which means that corporations can't limit certain websites from traveling through their networks unless they pay an extra fee for users to access them over and above the monthly ISP fees now, or they can't jack up rates for website owners based on speed of access or by partialing the world into different regions and charging a separate fee for each one, which is what they want to do to make more money. In the United States, with intensive lobbying, the big telecom companies have already had some bills passed their way, but the fight will never be over unless the internet remains free, because this is the last frontier left on Earth, and despite the big money the corporations have and the power the governments have, virtually the entire population of internet users is against regulation. So regardless of what laws they pass, they will never win because there will be sabotage and a backlash. There are forces that want to control the internet for their own reasons, to both collect taxes and to control who gets on the choice internet locations. This is censorship in a way, if the few big internet companies make it easy to access the websites they host but hard to access any not in their network. w3.org/privacy, w3c privacy overview, cpsr.org/cpsr/nii/cyber-rights, cyber-rights.dfn.org. Digital Freedom Network, DFN, promotes the use of the Internet for human rights. urbsoc.org/guides/cyberspace/elecdem.html, electronic democracy groups. EFC.ca, Electronic Frontier Canada. EFI.ie, Electronic Frontier Ireland. ALLIANCE-CM.org, SaveTheInternet.EFF.org/activism/SaveTheInternet.org, DeceptionBDsign.org. Interracial/multicultural resources. God has made of one blood all nations of men to dwell on all the face of the earth. Acts 17:26. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Galatians 3:28. There is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, slave nor free, but Christ is all, and in all. Colossians 3:11. The concept is that most societies these days, excluding the Japanese, which purposely try to be isolationist, are made up of all different ethnic groups. United States, Canada, Australia, and the Western European nations are all multi-ethnic, so the lesson is you'd better get along because you are all stuck with each other. The most complete reference book for minorities is called Minority Organizations, a National Directory, Gale Press, 800-877 Gale, galegroup.com. Some reference books are Asian Americans Information Directory, Black Americans Information Directory, Black Newspaper Index, Ethnic Information Sources of the United States, Guide to Black Organizations, Guide to Hispanic Organizations, Hispanic Americans Information Directory. Native Americans Information Directory, The Ethnic Almanac, The Hispanic American Almanac, Who's Who Among Black Americans, Who's Who Among Hispanic Americans. You can find books about this topic at number 305.800-899. number 306.84 or FC104, F1035, HM276, or HT1507 at the library. ADL.org, ANT-DEFAMATION.alianza.org, hispanic.blackfamilies.com, blackfamily.net, multiculturalcalendar.com, multiculturalkids.com, 800-711-2321, multilingualmunchkins.com, languagelearningforkids.multiracial.com, tolerance.org, medical activism. There are many people not happy with the conventional medical system and actively fight against it. AMA patientvoice.com, info about the medically uninsured. Citizens.org, Citizens for Health. For healthfreedom.org, healthcareforall.org, healthlobby.com, healthpolitics.com, Enter for Patient ADVOCACY 800-846-7444 PATIENTADVOCACY.org, patientsrights.org, 800-769-1 CPR, major patient advocacy group. Patient Advocate Foundation, 780 Pilot House Drive, No. 100C, Newport News, VA 2360680-532-5274, patient@pin.net, patientadvocate.org, help dealing with the medical system. Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, 5100 Wisconsin Avenue, NW. Number 404, Washington, D.C. 20005, 202-686-2210. PCRM.org, Society for Healthcare Consumer Advocacy, American Hospital Association. 1 Franklin St. Chicago, IL 6060312-4223999, chkaaha.org, Minority Activism Info. TheColOrline.com. NAACP.org. Nuclear Activism, WEBSITESMILLION-AGAINST-NUCLEAR.net, Million Europeans sign against nuclear power. Nuclearpolicy.org, Nuclear Policy Research Institute. NIRS.org, Nuclear Information and Resource Service. CNP.ca, Campaign for Nuclear Phase-Out. AtomicArchive.com, Council for a Livable World. Globalsecurity.org, the Nuclear Weapon Archive. Nuclear activism websites at nukefree.org/links.html. nukefree.org/links/global-activism.html. Greenpeace.org. NIRS.org. BeyondNuclear.org. psr.org/site/pageserver ? Page name == enviro_home. nrdc.org. sierraclub.org. nukefree.org/links/local-groups.html. mothersforpeace.org. nice.org. clamshell-tvs.org. nukebusters.org. riverkeeper.org. nukefree.org/bloggers-web-sites.html. guasifund.org. IER.org. RMI.org. betterplace.com. downtheyellowcakroad.org. ewg.org/kenko-ok-tezifi sun nuclear waste transportation +sign. nukefree.org/links/sustainable-advocates.html. votesola.org. sustainableenergycoalition.org. c-bed.org. nukefree.org/links/sustainable-advocates.html. nrel.gov. fscc.ucf.edu. sc.doe.gov. nukefree.org/links/research-and-resources.html. azas.org. aw.org. biodiesel.org. Chapter 3. Specific Activist Social Issues 3. Population Issues, popcouncil.org, unfpa.org, population activities. populationsecurity.org, population-issues.rand.org/research_areas/population/overpopulation.com, populationconnection.org, 800-767-1956 populationinstitute.org, 800-787-0038 prb.org, populationreferencebureau.undp.org, Population Development .0, Population Growth 1416th St. N.W. No. 320 Washington, DC 20036202-332-2200 zpg.org. Population decrease, eugenics. The Eugenics Society from the 1930s and 1940s in American and Europe was a real phenomenon, trying to sterilize undesirable elements of society, gays, mentally retarded people, people with serious handicaps, etc., and figuring out other ways to deal with them. According to something I read, the Eugenics Society changed its name to the Society for the Study of Social Biology, its current name. usc.edu/department/gero/sssb. The Rockefeller Foundation financed the eugenics movement in England. With support from the Rockefellers, the Eugenics Society, England, set up a subcommittee called the International Planned Parenthood Federation, which for 12 years had no other address than the Eugenics Society. Population decrease/mass genocide. Somebody said that AIDS was created by certain elements in secret societies to decrease the population of the planet. You can read about it on AIDS conspiracy websites. The Club of Rome has a position paper in which they state that the world population is too large and needs to be reduced by 90%. This means that 6 billion people must be reduced to 500 to 600 million. Prison websites. These websites have anything to do with prisons. Try number 365 at the library.incarcerationnation.com. realcostofprisons.org. witnesstorture.org/legalaclu.org/prisonaddamer.org. Prisoners Support and Human Rights Association. johnhoward.ca. middlegroundprisonreform.org. prisonactivist.com. prisonactivist.org. pearisonandjail.org. prisonbookprogram.org. profamilyactivistsafa.net. American Family Association. AllianceDefenseFund.org. AmericanFamilyVoices.org. AmericanValues.org. pro-marriage.family.org. menofintegrity.org. reclaimamerica.org. rnc.org. tfp.org. Tradition, Family, and Property. Senior Citizens Activism. aarp.org/protectseniors. maturecommunications.com/wordpress. CaliforniaAlliance.org, Senior Advocacy and Senior Activism. SeniorCitizenActivist.com. TCSG.org, the Center for Social Gerontology, a non-profit research, training, and social policy organization. UnitedZeniors.org, a non-profit, non-partisan organization for citizen activists who want to cut taxes, safeguard the Social Security Trust Fund and improve Social Security and Medicare for all generations. Senior.org, the Seniors Coalition is a non-profit, 501c4, non-partisan, education and issue advocacy organization that represents the interests and concerns of America's senior citizens at both the state and federal levels. The mission is to protect the quality of life and economic well-being that older Americans have earned while supporting common-sense solutions to the challenges of the future. AARP.org. Sex activism for basic sex rights. Barely 40 years ago, gays hardly had any rights, pornographers hardly had any rights, polygamists hardly had any rights, sex workers hardly had any rights, and sexual hedonists were looked down on as the scourge of society, a bunch of beach bum, hippie, yippie, dope-smoking perverts with no ambition to get a real job in the real world. Nowadays, even though some of the barriers have been broken, there are always backlashes from the right wing, plus there are many more repressive taboos that don't belong in a free society. Just recently, in my native Canada, they arrested a couple for running a swingers club. For free people in general, although it's not illegal, the pursuit of the hedonistic lifestyle with casual sex partners is frowned upon by the greater mainstream society. And then there's the issue of people using mind-altering substances in the privacy of their homes alone or with consenting adults if they want. Activism.net/sexactivism.net/sef-sf-sex.html, sanfrancisco.adultfreedomfoundation.org, aim-med.org, protects the health of sex workers. eros.org.o, freedomforum.org, freeexpression.org, freespeechcoalition.com, freespeechlaw.com, humanismbyjoe.com, ashes.edu/rights.html, basicsexualrights.ifreedom.org, libertas.net, lp.org, mediacoalition.org, ncac.org, fc.org.uk, Sexual Freedom Coalition. thefreespeechcoalition.com, worldsexology.org/about_se, sualrights.asp, American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, AIDS-related discrimination, UNIT 132W, 43rd St. New York, New York 100362212-944-9800, American Civil Liberties Union, Lesbian and Gay Rights 132W, 43rd St. NYC 100362212-944-9800, ACLU.org, Human Rights Campaign 1101, 14th St. NW, STE 200, Washington, DC 20005202-628-4166, HRCUSA.org, National Act Against Censorship, Together 800-476-7813, fax 538-85-8990, sunlove@inreach.com, act.org, Group for the Right to Use Pornography and the Rights of Sex Workers. National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, NGLTF, 23-2017, St. NW, Washington, DC 20009202-332-6483, NGLTF.org, Sexual Freedom Coalition, POG 4ZB, London, W1A4ZB 4427,493 4479, info@sfc.org.uxf.org.uk, hosts Sex Maniacs Ball. Sexual Freedom League, POG 33681, Phoenix, AZ 85067, Wasserman and Waiters, 228 Park Avenue North, Number B, Winter Park, Florida 32789. 407, 539-1140, fax 407-539-1126, info@firstamendment.com. firstamendment.com. Attorneys. Student Activism Info /college activist info, campusactivism.org, campusactivism.org /blog /studentactivism.net, blogcatalog.com /directory /society /beliefs and causes /activism /student activism /uka.org.uk /index.cfm, article 8 = 1078, University and College Union, Doku activist email lists. OccupyStudentDebt.com. WiretapMag.org, NewGeneration.AmericanStudentsOrganize.org, Early History of the National Student Association, founded after World War II. AskKids.com, Become a Student Activist, BlackOnCampus.com, BlackOnCampus.blog.youthrights.org, AgeOfReason.CampusProgress.org, CampusProgress.CampusSpeech.org, Center for Campus Free Speech. collegecandy.com/2010/08/09/ My Life as a Student Activist /collegefreedom.blogspot.com, collegefreedom.csun.edu/eop/htdocs/studentactivismbook.pdf, The Power of Student Activism Today, edutopia.org/voice, United Students Activism.wikipedia.org/wiki/student_activism, studentactivism.net, studentbergs.org/activist toolkit, Students Against Sweatshops.org. United Students Against Sweatshops. Students for a Democratic Society.org, a national student activist organization. Sweatshop info. Some clothes you buy were made by kids or peasants working for slave wages. Students Against Sweatshops.org, MaquilaSolidarity.org, Sweatshops.org, NOSweatshoplabel.com, Sweatshops.org, CoopAmerica.org/sweatshops/index.html, Sweatshops.sweatshopwatch.argosasnet.org, United Students Against Sweatshops.dol.gov/ilb/media/reports/iclp/sweat4torture, info@omct.org, World Organization Against Torture Inct.org, International Coalition Against Torture CVT.org, Center for Victims of Torture.etorture.netvast-vancouver.ca, Vancouver Association for Survivors of Torture CCVT.org, Canadian Centre for Victims of Torture, Committee Against Torture, Secretary of the Committee Against Torture U.N. Centre for Human Rights, United Nations Office in Geneva, Palais des Nations, ch. 1211, Geneva 10, Switzerland, 41, 22, 917-1234, fax, 41, 22, 917-0099 un.org. Tracking devices, infonocards.org/auto-id/overview.html, RFID chips, tiny tracking devices the size of a grain of dust, can be used to secretly identify you and the things you're carrying. Spychips.com, don't buy items with tracking devices.